Welcome into College Corner. Today, previewing a big matchup in the college football playoff between Texas and Washington in the Sugar Bowl. Abe, I think a lot of people very excited about the big mammoths of college football, Michigan, Alabama, in the other semifinal. But I actually think this game could be the most exciting in terms of like people who maybe aren't as familiar with the sport, or just honestly points. If you like points and scoring, I think this game's going to have it.
Yeah, we got two teams, explosive offense, two teams that aren't huge juggernauts on defense, right? You're going to see the ball through the air. If you are a casual to college football, it'll be a little different than the Michigan-Bama game, but it'll be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah. And I was actually one of my favorite people in college football, Bud Elliott. He does this blue chip ratio. I thought this was really interesting. It's basically what it does is what schools in college football right now have at least 50% or more of their recruits are 4 stars and 5 stars, and it's predicted. I shouldn't say it's predicted, but it's been the recipe that you need to have to win the national championship since I think 2011. Washington this year is the only team that doesn't. I still feel though like these are two teams. Shockingly, one of these two teams is going to play for the national title. Something you probably wouldn't have thought at the beginning of the year. So I'm very excited for that. What do you think is what are you most looking forward to, I guess, in this game in particular?
The fact that both of the teams are just going to throw the ball pretty much. Some success, both of these teams on the ground, but again, both of these teams okay run defenses where at least the OCs are looking before the game, hey, the game plan is not going to be run heavy most likely. It's going to be pass heavy for both, right? And you get fantastic quarterback play in both these games, which is something you don't have in the other semifinal games.
Yeah, you're at least unsure of too.
Exactly.
Sure. These guys are great.
So I think, again, a lot of points. I don't know where we're going to lean on the over or the under, but at least there's going to be some explosive plays made in this game, and it's probably not going to be on the ground.
Yeah. So the betting splits in this game, what we'll do is we'll go through kind of offenses and defenses, or when both teams have the ball, what you can expect. And then we'll talk at the end some player props, some bets. Today's video brought to you by props.cash. We'll show you what they do. But if you guys want to check them out, the link will be down below. So betting-wise, 4.5-point favorite Texas is. I don't think that's surprising. Like, to me, I think Texas is the more talented team in terms of just overall. Maybe you disagree at quarterback and wide receiver for Washington, but I do think Texas is like overall the more talented team.
I think it was also telling based on Washington being as big as dogs as they were in their conference championship game as well, right? 100%. So they get a little bit more respect than they did against Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game, but still not a ton for this Washington team. And I do think that's telling as how this game might go.
And I think betting wise, people are probably seeing, and I think it will go this way right before kick, is people are seeing the team with the lower number, the number 2 and the number 3, and the number 2 is a dog, because like right now it's like 65% of bets on Washington to cover, and then a lot of bets and money on the over, 88% I'm seeing. So not shocking, because I love this game and this matchup for points, that's for sure.
So some of the things you need to go into when you're capping the game, or how we're going to predict the game, key injury news from you.
Yeah, so Xavier Worthy got hurt at the end of the game and didn't come back. The thing is about college, the difference between college and the NFL, they don't have to tell you anything. And Sarkisian said that Worthy's going to be fine, and they're very confident he's going to play. Then they have their cornerback Ryan Watts, who missed the championship game, the Big 12 championship game. So that's something to really pay attention to, because Worthy is the most talented wide receiver for this Texas team and a huge part of what they do. So that's a little bit concerning to me, because they don't have to tell you whether or not these guys are going to play. We'll see what that materializes too, but that's something definitely to keep an eye on. But again, Sark was saying they were confident these guys would be back. I guess you want to get into I think maybe just the offense for, let's talk a little bit about when Texas has the ball, I guess.
Absolutely. I think, so you have written down here players you need to know on offense. There's 2. Quarterback play in this game is outstanding, right? Yeah. You have 2 different kind of paths to where Quinn Ewers went and where Michael Penix went. So also kind of just breaking down how they ended up here. Michael Penix is an old guy compared to what Quinn
was
Ewers
at Indiana before Washington. Kalen DeBoer was his OC at Indiana. Now he's been at Washington for a couple of years. Was the Heisman contender this year. Finished second in the voting. And then Ewers has been
he's been a guy for forever, and he goes to Ohio State, number 1 overall recruit, and then he is out of there after 1 year. And maybe not the best first year for him at Texas, but he's really coming to his own here.
Yeah, I think they said he's going to be coming back, which is surprising. Texas also lost Jonathan Brooks, their running back, who was great all season towards ACL. So they have a bit of a committee going. We'll kind of get into that at the end here with some player prop stuff. But for Texas, they're a team that throughout the season has had a lot of balance, but since they lost Brooks, they've relied on Ewers a lot more. He's completing around 70% of his passes on the season, which is one of the best in the country, top 10 in the country amongst quarterbacks. And then he has those 2 like I said, Worthy, and then A.D. Mitchell, transfer from Georgia. I don't know if you might remember him from last year. He has taken to a completely different level since he's come to Texas. I found that at Georgia wasn't utilized probably to his best strengths. At Georgia has been dynamic for them. And really when Worthy's now playing well, it's really been a lot of him. I think for Texas, there's a few different ways you can beat this Washington defense that has looked a lot better, I think, in the second half of the year. But running the ball has been a good way to beat them. We saw Oregon run it really effectively in that game earlier in the season when these two teams went at it. Bucky Irving went for over 100 yards in that game. And like numbers-wise, Washington's 124th in EPA against the run. They're giving about 4.8 yards per carry. And I find that the offense or the defensive line doesn't do nearly enough for them. They don't generate a lot of pressure. Their sack rate, I think I was looking like 10%, 123rd. And that's the thing that puts a lot of stress on like their secondary having to make plays. If a guy like yours is going to have a lot of time, this is a very highly recruited Texas offensive line that has played really well. So biggest thing I'm looking at is can Texas. I think Texas could probably get to this defense in a few different ways. Like I see a pretty big advantage there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be able to break down the secondary player by player, but you just look at the Washington defense stats here. Sack percentage, not great.
Yeah,
outside
exactly.
top 130 in the country that way. Passes per game, 40 passes a game. So teams know. It's interesting in college football when you see these stats, how they match up over the full season because you have 3 or 4 games against teams that absolutely stink.
Yeah,
so
right.
if you see 40 pass attempts a game against these teams, some of those bad teams are also passing on them as well. That's what they've game planned for. Guys who are smarter than us, who do this for a living. It's like, okay, this is how we're going to attack this Washington team. So I think throwing the ball against them is definitely the best way because they don't get run on a ton. 42% they get run on. So teams think they can throw on Washington.
The biggest concern I have, and this is for the Texas fans that are watching, I'm sure there's plenty of you because every time we do these videos, we get tons of comments from each of the teams. But the biggest concern I have with Texas is red zone. They've consistently all season been a really poor red zone offense. They're scoring a touchdown in just 49% of the red zone trips. It's improved over the latter half of the year, but was a really big problem earlier in the year. What I like, though, as I was looking at some of these numbers, and Washington has been poor when it comes to giving up explosive pass plays. And that's what Worthy and A.D. Mitchell can definitely do. They're giving up a near 40% completion percentage on passes of 20-plus air yards, actually giving up 27 total on the season on those passes, completions on those passes. That's 127th. I'm looking at run game to open up big plays, and I certainly think Texas is capable of doing that, despite the fact that Washington's pass defense has actually been not too bad despite the struggles against in the pass rush. Jabbar Muhammad was the big guy I was looking at. He's got like 10 pass breakups this year, giving up like a 52% completion percentage on passes going his way. So offensively for Texas, I think it's run the ball and then look to take advantage and take the top off the defense. Like we saw Texas do against Bama early in the year on the road.
Yep.
They definitely had a bunch of those explosive plays. So that's really what I'm looking for.
And if you're worried about red zone scoring, the Washington defense isn't great stopping red zone scoring.
Not at all. I think, what was the number?
They're ranked 70th in the country, opponent red zone scoring percentage. So maybe those two bad things find a way to even themselves out here. So if we go Texas when they have the ball, let's go to Washington when they have the ball. Where do you think their game plan is? Because I think it could be kind of similar to the Texas game plan.
Yeah, I definitely think it's throwing the football. Washington's been doing it all year. What do you have their numbers at? Like their top 10 passing offense, I think, in the country in terms of like run-pass split. 58% of plays. So definitely a team that's going to lean on Penix and his arm. Dylan Johnson, though, I think this offense is. I think this is the team that benefits the absolute most from getting the extra time off before this game because I think Penix has been banged up.
He looked banged. So him and the Heisman
conversation kind of
exactly was good, and then there was the 3-week stretch where it totally looked like Michael Penix was hurt.
Yes.
So him getting that time off as an older guy as well. I could not agree with you more.
And McMillan, too, has only played like 5-6 games. Yale McMillan. This is the best wide receiver core in the country. McMillan, Polk, and Odunze have been incredible. Dylan Johnson's carried the load. I think in the last 6 games of the year, he had like over 700 rushing yards. Bailed them out in a big way because I think they need to get healthy, and they will here. But Texas is a team that's going to be really hard to run the ball against. They have mega talent. Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, these are 2 guys that are going to be probably first-round picks at the 2 defensive tackle spots. And then Jalen Ford's been one of the best linebackers in the country. They're giving up just 3.8 yards per carry, which is 6th, I think. Throw the football. If you want to beat this Texas team, it's definitely going to come down to throwing the football. And Penix, healthy, I think they can do that.
100%, yeah. You're like the yards per rush is crazy for this front.
Yeah, they're so good.
And again, this Washington team, you talk about how good their receivers are, how good the quarterback play is. It seems to work perfectly as like what they want to do. They're going to have to run the ball at some point. Obviously, you just can't sit back there and throw it 100 times in a game. But it'll be interesting to see how they're able to game plan for that. The Texas team who gave up some points, Oklahoma State as well. I mean,
giving up points to a lot of. I think they've given up points to a decent amount of teams, and I think it's through the air, to be honest.
100%.
The one thing I'm also looking at is so when I'm attacking player props in this game, or how I expect it's kind of the same for both. Where the Texas red zone defense has actually been polar opposite, where they've struggled on offense. They're really good on defense. 45.7% touchdown rate allowed, which is one of the best in the country. And again, you mentioned major advantages over what Washington's defense has done in the red zone. So whether or not this game goes over is going to completely be decided on how often are these teams not, breaking a big play for a touchdown and having to get down the field and then score in the red zone. Because offensively, Texas has struggled. Defensively, Texas is great. Big plays again. Same thing I have with this passing offense for Washington. How I'm going to look at the player props. You look at Texas' defense against the pass. They're giving up 39.2% completion percentage on passes of 20-plus air yards. That's 98th in the country. So that's, again, big plays are capable of happening because Penix had 100 pass attempts of 20-plus air yards, the most in the country, and Odunze was a big player in this area of the field. He caught almost 50% of his passes on 37 targets of 20-plus air yards, the most in the country. Him and Jalen Polk on the outside, those are two guys that can really stress this Texas secondary. That's again, the offensive attack, I think, from Washington. They'll struggle more to run the ball. They'll lean on the pass game, and they'll probably find some ways to air it out and get some big plays.
So you have a little interesting stat here about big thing college football is getting your defense off the field. It's the best thing. And Texas is the best team in the country on third down conversion percentage against. So they are fantastic getting off the field, and Washington is outside. Yes, they're 76th in the country.
Defensively or on offense?
Defensively,
yeah.
So Washington, tougher time getting off the field. Still okay at it, right? But Texas is the best team in the country.
You look at numbers, and again, this is going to sound so disrespectful to Washington for an undefeated season. They don't have the blemish on the record that Texas does. They didn't need help to get into the playoff like Texas did this year. But the numbers tell you that Texas is potentially the better team here, and the spread obviously says that.
Yep.
But I do think this is as bad. Like, I think Texas would have a better time with a Michigan or an Alabama than they would a Washington. And that's not to say that the spread will indicate that or the books will agree with me, but Texas is the team that can air the ball out and take advantage of what I think is the weakest part of this Texas defense, which is the secondary. Player props.
Yep.
Did you have anything that stuck out to you?
So McMillan is who I like for his.
I saw his numbers are good.
For his receiving yards, for sure. He's at 78.5, his receiving yards. I think they'll get down. I didn't know what side I wanted to be on, and as we look into these numbers more and more, I think Texas is the side I'm going to end up betting at some point. The total, so I would love to bet the over in this game. I think I might do it for fun.
It's the red zone
100%.
stuff.
And if it ends up in field goals with the total as high as it is right now, it's going to kill us.
We could see 800 yards of offense in this game, and somehow we get like 31. We get like 31-28.
Yes, exactly. It's
possible.
The Pac-12 championship game went under somehow too. So I'm going to probably might bet it for fun, but that's not going to be an official play for me. But I think that Washington does get down at some point, and when you get maybe two scores and it's kind of late, you don't want to give up those big plays where Texas seems to just give up the middle of the field, get a ton of yards, and I think this can happen for the Washington team. So I'll go Jalen McMillan over his receiving yards, 78.5.
Yeah. So I was looking at a few different things. I kind of like Dylan Johnson. You look at the numbers, we'll definitely be showing them to you on screen from props.cash. Johnson's been getting the ball a ton, and he's been going over the number. It's like 73.5. But we talked about Texas' run defense being so good. And if you like Texas, Abe kind of likes Texas here. You think Texas covers, I think Johnson would go under this number. I do think Washington can still cover. I don't have a side in this game. I'm definitely looking more at these player props. But I think we're between the three of us, you're just going to take Michael Penix over passing yards, which I don't think is a bad spot either. But I like Odunze. It's 96.5, his receiving yards number. It's a number that he's cleared pretty easily in a number of games. He's gone over in 4 straight, getting 100+ in 4 straight. You guys can see that here. And he's gone over in 9 of 13 games this season. Again, we mentioned the big plays that he's capable of hitting, those targets 20+ air yards that Texas has struggled with. These outside receivers they struggled with too. He's posted a reception of 20+ air yards in all but 1 game this season. So he will hit these big plays. He's going to see a significant amount of target volume. McMillan being back and healthy will definitely play a factor in his volume overall, but I still think capable of going over. So I like Dylan Johnson under, and I like I like Rome Odunze to go over his receiving yards.
Anything else on the other side? Because Penix, I'm probably going to bet his yards.
It's like 308.5, I think.
309.5 I'm getting here. I think I'm going to bet that as well. Because if I bet Texas, I'm going to bet Michael Penix passing yards, I believe.
Texas is really tough for me. They don't have some of the player props out quite yet on A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy because of Worthy's status being in jeopardy. I think Mitchell will be a decent target for you, even if Worthy does play. And then I do think it's tough with Texas in the backfield. They're kind of running this like three-headed monster of Jaden Blue, C.J. Baxter, and Keelan Williams. And then they also, in the Oklahoma State game, they ran like three other backs. I think it's Blue and Baxter, but again, the red zone struggles are my concern. I don't want to play a rushing yards over just because they're splitting so much, and Baxter's at like 73.5 or so. What I do like is Jaden Blue to score. He scored, I think, in the 2 of the 3 games that they played so far with Brooks being out. So that's something to look at as well.
Right. And then the props that cash play that I came up with is I just like getting on props at cash, finding out a play that, I wasn't ready to talk myself into. Yeah. You see a little bit of green there. You see some red as well. Jatavion Sanders.
Yeah, he's been super involved too.
I'm going to take his.
He's been consistent.
I'm going to take his yards as well.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much it we have from the Sugar Bowl. Very excited for this game. We will actually be at the Rose Bowl, and we'll get to watch this game hopefully from a bar post game. But we'll have Rose Bowl content coming to you guys tomorrow. Preview Alabama and Michigan. If you guys enjoyed today's video, if you are enjoying the college football content coming from us this season, hit that like button on this video, subscribe to the channel as well, and enjoy a great college football playoff.